Hello everyone. So I will talk about a very important anesthesia adjuvant, dexmedetomidine. What is a characteristic of an ideal perioperative anesthetic agent? Now, ideal perioperative anesthetic agent should be easy to titrate to the effect, should have a fast onset, should be minimally lipid soluble, should not have any effect on the respiratory system, should maintain the tone of the airway, should have minimal cardiovascular effect, should be neuroprotective. Now, it is very difficult to get an ideal perioperative anesthetic agent, the drug which fulfills all these criteria. But dexmedetomidine certainly has lot of important properties which I just mentioned. So, it is very near to an ideal perioperative anesthetic agent. So, what makes this drug great? What is its pharmacokinetic properties? What is the pharmacodynamic properties of dexmedetomidine? We will discuss everything in this topic in details. The chemical nature of dexmedetomidine, the receptor on which it acts, how does it produces the response? What is the desired effect? What are the undesired effect? How can we minimize the undesired effect? What is the dose? What are the end organ effects on various organs of dexmedetomidine? We will discuss. So let us start our discussion with the chemical nature of dexmedetomidine. So I don't know you have heard or not, but there is a veterinary sedative which is used for veterinary purposes, medetomidine. Dexmedetomidine is S enantiomer of that veterinary sedative medetomidine. So chemically, dexmedetomidine is S enantiomer of a sedative used for veterinary purpose, medetomidine. Okay. So what is the receptor on which dexmedetomidine acts? Dexmedetomidine is a highly selective alpha-2 agonist. Highly selective. Why I am saying highly selective? See, most of the drug which acts on alpha receptor, which are alpha agonist, they have some level of action on alpha-1 receptor and alpha-2 receptor. Now, there are some desirable effect for alpha-1 and there are some desirable effect we want to have for having an agonist effect on alpha-2 receptor. Dexmedetomidine is highly selective alpha-2 agonist. So, dexmedetomidine is highly selective alpha-2 adrenoreceptor agonist. So, as I said that alpha adrenoreceptor are of two type, alpha-1 and alpha-2, right? Now, alpha-1 receptors are mostly located on postsynaptic membrane. It is located on postsynaptic side. And because of the alpha-1 agonist effect, mostly it produces vasoconstriction. So, it is located on smooth muscle and mostly it produces vasoconstriction. Okay. Alpha-2 receptor are of two types. It is present on postsynaptic sites like alpha-1 receptor, and like alpha-1 receptor, it also produces vasoconstriction, similar effect. But alpha-2 receptor which are present on presynaptic site, they modulate the effect of norepinephrine release. They decrease the effect of norepinephrine release. So, they decrease noradrenaline release. And because of decrease in noradrenaline release, it will produce its effect, which I will discuss about. And your dexmedetomidine is highly selective for alpha-2 adrenoreceptor. Its sensitivity on alpha-2 is to alpha-1 receptor is said to be 1620:1, right? 1620:1. If I ask you, please tell me another selective alpha-2 receptor agonist, your immediate answer would be yes, it's clonidine, right? Clonidine was in clinical use much before dexmedetomidine, and its sensitivity for alpha-2 is to alpha-1 receptor is 90:1, which is much less what we have for dexmedetomidine, 1620 is to 1. So that's why it is called highly selective or pure alpha-2 agonist. We kind of call it pure alpha-2 agonist. And because of pure alpha-2 agonist, the predominant effect on the presynaptic site, decreasing in norepinephrine release, its major action, its consistent action is sympatholytic effect. Sympatholytic effect because of decrease in norepinephrine release, and some modulating effect because of this sympatholytic effect. So we will discuss about it. Now first let us talk about pharmacokinetic of the drug. The drug has been primarily approved for IV use. So mostly it has been approved all over world for intravenous use, and it has an excellent bioavailability if given through IV route. But it can not only be given through IV route, it can be given by other routes as well. We can give it orally, and if I give it orally, then its bioavailability is 16%. Okay, so bioavailability is what I am talking about, is 16%. Then if I give it rectally, right, then its bioavailability is, let's say, 32%. If I give it nasally, through nasal route, its bioavailability is 65%. And if I give it through buccal mucosa, buccally, then its bioavailability is 82%. So it can be given by these routes as well, especially by nasal and buccal route. Okay. When we give it IV or when it is in blood by any route, when it achieves the serum concentration, right, then 92% of the drug, or little bit more, 94%, 92 to 94% of the drug is bounded to protein. The unbound drug can freely cross the blood-brain barrier and can have the CNS effect. So 94% of drug is protein bounded, right? The unbound drug in the plasma freely cross blood-brain barrier, and because it can freely cross blood-brain barrier, its distribution T-half is hardly 6 minutes, that is for its central effect. So it can have a fast onset within 6 minutes, the fast central onset within 6 minutes by very quickly crossing the blood-brain barrier. Now, how is the drug metabolized? Metabolism is mostly dependent on liver. So, metabolism is kind of entirely dependent upon liver. When the drug passes through the liver, it undergoes 3 chemical changes. It can undergo the demethylation, it can undergo hydroxylation, and it can undergo glucocoordination, right? So, glucocoordination, attached to glucuronic acid, hydroxylation, or N-methylation. By all these 3 techniques, the drug gets changed into inactive metabolite, right? So, by these 3 processes, it gets changed into inactive metabolite, and this inactive metabolite undergo renal excretion, right? So, basically, the responsibility of drug to metabolize, responsibility of organ to metabolize the drug into inactive metabolite is of liver. So, the dose modulation of the drug is only to be required to be done in case of patient with hepatic dysfunction. So, the clinical implication of this is that we need a dose reduction. We need dose reduction in patient with liver dysfunction. Dose reduction required in liver impairment. In patient with kidney disease, we don't need a dose reduction because kidney excretes the inactive metabolite only, right? So whether it's a slow excretion or a fast excretion,